Just count me down when we're ready to go. Hey, gang. Hopefully you guys have made it. And tone to canvas, kind of a green color. I have no idea why.
Not quite 12 yet.
So I just heard it's not 12 yet. That's why I paused.
It is now.
I'm going to do a head today. I'd like to call it a portrait, but generally, if I'm doing a portrait, I'm going to spend 20, 30 minutes or a couple hours, depending on what it is, really working out the character of that individual. I might even put a little tone in, but more of what I would call a portrait study or a head study is pretty much what I'm going to attack today. So I toned it down. Then I took a piece of pastel and did some proportional marks in here just because I thought it might help me get going. Now I'm going to take a piece of vine charcoal and I'm going to darken these marks a little bit. And it looks to me like her hair kind of comes out here, goes up. This is about the top of it up in here. That goes at a pretty severe angle right there. Wow, it's got a really nice angle to it. I love this kind of hair to paint, by the way.
Can I ask you why you're using vine charcoal?
Using vine charcoal because I don't have to press. I also have a couple charcoal pencils. Also, if you use vine charcoal and you don't like it, it's gone. So where if I use a charcoal pencil, I can't, it doesn't go away as easily. That's the main reason. Sometimes when I used to illustrate, I used to do a lot of drawings in charcoal, fix it, and then go from there. So we're just going to get these proportional marks down, and I'm going to correct it. I'm going to round her. She's got a wonderfully square jaw, which was one of the attractions for me wanting to paint her. I thought her bone structure is just excellent. And she's one of our models that I was able to photograph while teaching at the academy. She posed, and I think we probably used it for an online piece. So I was able to go back. Just going to get these quick proportional marks in here. Her eyes sit right in here, center of the head. So I want to get, that's the bend. If I have too many marks in, I don't care. And if some of the marks are in it, they feel wrong, I'll just take my finger and smudge them out. Hairline is about here. Comes up. The other thing you can do with charcoal, so if I want to draw kind of where that shadow begins, I can actually go and put it in like that. And then if I say I just smear it a little bit if I don't want it to be that strong. So there's advantages. I don't draw with vine charcoal a lot, but when I'm working direct from a model, I might be more apt to use a vine charcoal. So we're going to get kind of where her eyebrows go. Space here is really important. What is that space? How much space is there between the end of the eyebrow and where the hairline starts? All these are proportional marks. In doing a head painting or a character study, it's not as crucial as if you're doing a portrait. If you're doing an actual portrait, things of that nature become very, very important. That's beautiful, beautiful jaw right there. And then cheekbone down the jaw. And this on this side, it's about in here. And then the eyes. Let's see. Nose. The eye. This eye. I think I've mentioned in doing a lot of the landscapes that you're always doing what I call a kind of a guesstimate. This is where I think it goes. All right. That's kind of your attitude. This is where I'm pretty sure it goes here. And then you may be right and you may be wrong. It's a Billy Joel song, by the way.
What was
I really like Billy Joel. I actually didn't realize it was that song until I said it. But so we even mapped in the shadow. If I don't like it, I'll just move it around a little bit. Irises I could put in or not put in. They sit right kind of in here. Probably wrong, but just for placement's sake, let's get them in there. The mouth, the corner of the mouth, if I go straight up, the inside of the iris. So it's right there, and that's the corner of the mouth. Corner of the mouth here, same thing. Right about that. That tells me the corner. Then this is the line that divides the lips. Sometimes it can really dip depending on the structure of an individual's lips. So if you're doing a head, you're doing a portrait, it's the crucial part, truthfully, initially is proportion. And from once we get proportion down, then we've got to get into anatomy and structure. So there we go. And this is over here. I'm not going to get too much of this because this is going to be pretty loose by the time we get down to it. Shoulder, the shoulder is higher. Around it. I don't like to draw like that. I use more straight lines when I sketch, whether it's a landscape, whether it's an automobile, whether it's a person. I round them out as I paint. It just, for myself, it works better. So that's pretty much it. I don't want to go in and do a lot of tonality. Now, if I were doing a portrait, I might go in and actually clean up some of these tones, clean up some of the drawing. But this is, like I said, this is a little bit more of what I kind of refer to as a head study. So with that in mind, I'm going to move right ahead. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something, and I'm going to do this for the sake of, I do it if I'm doing a portrait, not always if I'm doing a head. Excuse me, I'm going to reach over and grab a palette knife, because what I am going to be doing is I'm going to be using a knife to mix up 4 basic values, 4 basic colors, and I'm going to point those out. The background, I'm going to mix up, it's kind of a blue-gray color. The base flesh tone, right in here. There are many variations, but I want to build in that basic color, which is probably closer to this. All right, then I want to take the dark. This is the darkest dark, it's here, and then the shadow, which is just slightly lighter than that. It all diffuses at this point, but it lightens up. So I'm mixing up those 4 basic colors and values. I'm going to take a little bit of time here. I'm going to start with the background. So I'm going to start with a little white. And we'll put that over here. I'm going to take some medium. This is that solvent-free gel, by the way. Or I can use a little bit of the linseed oil. Just put it on my knife here. And then I'm going to throw a little bit of ochre into it. Blue. More blue. It's not enough, I can tell right now. And probably asphaltum for the darkness. I could throw some orange into it, but and I'll mention my palette while I'm mixing these things up. Titanium white, Naples yellow, yellow ochre, cad orange hue, cad red hue, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, sap green, asphaltum, and raw sienna. So those are.
One more time.
Yes, I will.
I'm trying to type it out.
You're trying to type it out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. White, it's radiant white, or titanium, either one. They're kind of interchangeable. I can see right now I'm probably going to need more blue. Naples yellow, yellow ochre, cad orange hue. This looks a little light, by the way. That's a little lighter than I want. I'm going to throw a lot more asphaltum into it. And one more shot of blue or a sap. It doesn't matter, because either one is going to take it the right direction. And once I kind of have this, I'm going to leave it right about here, I think. This looks pretty good.
I'm just guessing cad red light.
No, it's I have cad orange hue, but cad red light is very similar. After that, I have just basic cad red. hue. I have alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, sap green, asphaltum, and raw sienna. Smear that around. It's way too blue, but that's okay. It's going to sit underneath anyway. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up the base flesh tone, the base flesh tone, the base light flesh tone. I'm going to start with raw sienna because I see a lot of raw sienna in that base flesh tone. So we're going to grab a lot of raw sienna, maybe a little yellow ochre. Then I want to warm it up. I can use any one of my reds. I'm going to take the medium red, just the cad red. And I'm probably going to need a touch of white or Naples yellow light. And with that, some of the medium. And this is my guess. I can see it's not red enough, so I'm going to grab some more cad orange here. But I don't want to go too bright. I want a little bit of cool into it so I can still warm it up if I want to. So, boy, that's pretty close, I think. So what you can do sometimes is you can take the color, hold it up, say I'm a little on the light side, but not far. I'm pretty close. Like it when that happens. Like I said, like I've told you guys, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you mix stuff up and you go, nope, missed it. I generally don't do this in landscapes unless I'm doing a giant landscape, and then I may do it more in the studio probably than in plein air. Plein air, I'm pretty much acting. So that's going to be a little too red. So I'm going to throw a little Naples yellow into that. I'll lighten it and bring a little bit more yellow back into it. I think that's about right. That feels pretty good. Now I'm going to go with the dark, as dark as I go, the black, pretty much, so to speak. So we already know from weeks past what that color is. I'm going to do it on the right. That's asphaltum and ultramarine blue. I could be using, and I may throw, I don't know, I may throw some alizarin crimson or sap green into it. All those, if you look at them, they're all super dark on the palette. And bring a little medium into that. This time I just grab my safflower oil. Any of the mediums work. It's just loosening it up is all. So this is going to go up in here. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a color almost the same as that, but a little lighter, a little bit more towards the flesh. It's going to be the deep shadow without going to the dark, the deep shadow of the flesh. For that, asphaltum and raw sienna. And that may do it. I think I'm going to warm it up in a little cad red. So it should be very close in value to the shadow, because that's how I see it. This looks pretty good right here. Let me squeeze it out with a palette knife a little bit. And it's going to be about in here. Not there, but there. So there's my fort. Now you may say, what about this? This isn't as important color-wise. Flesh, clothing can be any color. All right. Flesh absolutely can be any color, but generally it's much more crucial to get the flesh tone more accurate than it is to get your garment. So that's why I'm doing that. Same as I could have said the same thing about the background. Now I'm going to grab my really inexpensive little gesso brush.
Laurel has a quick question about, is the base flesh tone kind of like a mother color that you adjust temperatures?
Yep, you adjust temperature and value, those two things out of that one tone. So here's my background, which is pretty close to what I wanted. Don't want to spend a lot of time, but I do want to get it in, because the reason I like to get the background in, and I know a lot of artists don't, I like to get it in early, because then I relate all of my colors that I'm mixing within the flesh to that background. It's because I relate it to one color. Now, if I have to do the background later, then I have to relate that background to a whole bunch of different colors that are going on in the picture. So it's a heck of a lot easier to take your background and relate it to one color than it is to take your background and relate it to 5, 10 colors that might be occurring in your picture. I had a little too loose there. That's why you see drips happening. Some people like that. I do sometimes. Not this time. Not for what I'm trying to achieve. So that happens. You just do that. Okay. Now, I like that to get a little lighter over right down in here. So I picked out the lighter part of what I'd already mixed up, and I'm just kind of pushing that a little bit lighter down in this region. I'd rather paint a little bit into my subject than I would right up to the edge. So I don't want to be as edge to edge type painting as a lot of people like to be. I like to be flexible. Part of the reason is I just assume half the time that I'm wrong in what I'm doing anyway, and I'm going to need to adjust it. So if I get, you know what would really be nice to throw a little ochre into that. I don't know why, but it just feels like I should. Okay, that's just what comes down. But if you're blue or any outstanding, you're better to use like a near complement, something that is not going to stand out too much. You know, unless you're going to do a painting for some reason you want a red background. So we basically got a background and that's kind of working. Haven't worked it all the way. I never worry about working out to the edge. I know I need the model to do that. So I'm kind of used to leaving that alone. Because when you paint the model, if the model gets up and walks away, then you can worry about finishing the background to whatever edge you want. But initially you want the model there for the model. Okay, so let's stay with that little brush because we're laying in big areas. I'm going to switch. As soon as I get off the hair, I'm going to switch over. We'll leave the garment alone for now. So if I have time at the end, we'll get some of the garment in. All right, so right now I'm going to grab my dark. It's a little on the brown side, so I'm throwing a little more ultramarine into it. Let's go almost to the edge, and then we'll worry about the edge. Oh, didn't want to go that high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that band back out just by wiping it up down a little bit. There we go. Okay. The reason it's a dark color, it's harder to paint lights on dark colors. So that's why I wiped as much of it as I could off.
You mean for the band?
Yeah. Because the band itself is light. So we're going almost to the edge. And then we'll deal with the edge in a second. And I kind of want to paint through that a little bit. So we're going to get a little bit more of that in. I should have put more blue in there. I'm going to definitely need more ultramarine. I know without a doubt. Okay, now I'm going to worry about the edge. And here's what we're going to do with the edge. We're going to light touch into wet paint. Because there is no firm edge. It's not like we're painting a guy with slicked down hair. We have that kind of wonderful nebulous edge there. Some of the most fun hair to paint. And if I go too far, I got the background color, correct? So I can just fix it. Don't like that. I hadn't painted a head for a while, you guys, because I've been doing so many landscapes and I've been doing other things. So I feel a little rusty. But it's one of my true joys is to do head painting. So it's really fun to force myself back into it. Or as I like to think of, you guys force me into it. But just because I haven't done it. That's the main reason I'm doing this. I'm trying to pick things each week that rather than replicate what I've done in the past, try and pick something a little bit different, because I think for the sake of every individual, everyone's got their loves. Oh, I love doing seascapes, or I love doing landscapes, or, I truly don't like one better than the other. My whole background is figurative, so that's kind of where I start from. Now take that nice dark, and I can see the dark of the ear here is pretty much in deep shadow, deeper shadow than the rest of the face, actually. Okay, we're gonna have to switch over to another brush at about this point. I'm gonna set this brush aside, keep it there, but I'm gonna grab one of my medium-sized bristles. I think maybe something like this is what, number 10, maybe. Yeah, number 10 flat. And I'm going in with that shadow color that I had, and it feels a little stiff, so I'm adding a little extra medium, and it's a little red, so I'm adding a little bit more blue or green. If I'm running out of blue, I'm going to use the green. Okay.
Just put some down there.
What's that? So we're going to paint the shadow. Working it in the hair. If I need to push the two together, I can do that later. But this color actually looks pretty good for a shadow color compared to what I see. So go down, get the eye socket in. Much the same as pretty much I've been professing and all these demos that I've done is simple at first, complex later. So by simple, I like to refer to it as a two-value statement. And what I'm beginning with is what would be a two-value statement, meaning that the entire thing is laid in light and in shadow. And no complications within the shadow or no variations within the light to begin with. Definitely there's going to be a lot of variations, much more variations within the light, since that's where the focus is, than in the shadow. But if I start with what I consider kind of a middle tone, both in the light and in the shadow, I have a lot of room to build out of it both ways. What I mean by both ways is I can carve deeper shadows into it, or I can build out lights. This is real sensitive right around here. One of the painting heads, I say this all the time to anybody that is working with me in any sort of class situation. The most difficult part of the face to paint is the corner of the mouth. It is so subtle compared to the nose. It's very strong. It's got a lot of structure that we can see readily, as do the eyes. There's a lot of structure, although there is a lot of subtle structure around the eye. I don't want to make the eye sound like it's just a piece of cake. None of it's easy, literally, but it generally. All right, now I'm going to come under that neck. Still staying with that same value, up on the chin a little bit. Now, if I wanted to, I could have gone the other way and started with the light. The reason I'm starting with the shadow, and because people have asked, can you go the other way? Yes. The reason is because I can say, this is similar to the value of the flesh that I want. And if I get this in shadow form, it's almost like you're doing a charcoal lay-in. And I can see it as a tonal drawing, so to speak. And it lets me see if I misplace something, if I'm not as accurate as I need to be. And I can see that this side of the lip, there's a lot of subtlety going on in here, a lot of little subtlety, but we'll get into that at the right time. That's actually an important little comment that I just made there, getting into it at the right time. Beginning to see things in an order that makes sense in terms of painting. Don't see, I know there's highlights, but I haven't even begun to consider them or look at them right now. A little bit over in here. This is basically just barely faded away up at this point, and it's a little deeper down in here, just dragging that brush down, not hammering it in, just dragging it down softly. Be a little bit more careful. Switch the grip on my brush. I don't know if you guys just noticed that. Switch the grip on my brush. I use this for more accuracy. I use this to push paint it around.
What brush are you using?
It is still, it's a rosemary flat and it's a number 10. So it's big. And I know a lot of people want to bear down right at this stage and get right down to that tiny brush. Probably the biggest mistake you can make.
I have a question. What's some good advice of simplifying what you're viewing so that you're just looking at the darks right now? How do you do that without?
You switch your eye at your subject. If you switch your eye at your subject, you eliminate halftones and detail. You immediately see just the lights and the darks. If you can do this with anything, go outside, look at a vista, and same thing. It eliminates detail, and that's the whole idea of squinting your eye. What I always tell people is to close one eye and squint the other. Okay, so let's get that shadow on the neck. Go a little bit bolder here. Probably be a little bit more forgiving down in here if I'm off. Here. All right, looks like she's got a little hair there. A little bit right behind the ear. Then that kind of dissolves into the shadow, which becomes a stronger cast shadow at this point. So pretty much I've got down approximately. Now, I'm not going to do it. I should stand back at this point, because that's how I see if it's shaping up. All right, I'm going to clean that brush. So it's the first time I've really dipped into turp, and I'm rubbing it down on my grate, cleaning most of the dark out of it. And then I want to wipe it. I want to get most of that moisture and darkness out of the brush. There'll be a residue. There will always be a residue. So now I want to paint this tone. And we painted 1 tone, 2 tones, 3 tones. Now we're going to go with the light flesh. Some people leave room for the highlight. Once again, you can do that, but when I'm painting fast, I don't. So I can rub it out, which is what I just did. It's a highlight that's going to occur right in here. Okay. I'm not going to worry about it too much right now. I want a base flesh tone down. And once again, I want to watch that edge, so I'm going to paint up to it right now, and then I'll concentrate on creating the edge that I'm after. But initially, I won't do it. Now, the paint's a little stiff, is what you see me rubbing, so I'm grabbing a little bit more of the solvent-free gel. It'll help the paint go down a little bit easier. Or I can grab the sunflower oil See what happens? That's why I don't want to go into that paint right now. Because if I pick up any of that dark, it's going to muddy my color at this particular time. I do want the edges to get softer. So I will do that, particularly right in here. Also, I'm going to mix a tone up in here that's a little bit darker because it's how I see it. But this gives me a really solid base to build off of. See how I picked up some dirt there? So I want to brush that out. That's why you see me not painting all the way up to these edges right now. And I don't like to do that. But because I want clean flesh tones, I want to start this way. And there's that great structure right there. But we're going to eliminate it. We're going to pick up the jaw. So I picked up the a little bit of dirt there, which is okay. I'm going to use that to my advantage. See what I did? I just drug that same tone down, and I can actually brush up from there. Okay. Clean that brush, get that dirt out of it. Let's go back in here. I don't want to contaminate the color that I have down there, truthfully, simply because I'm going to be using that to mix other colors out of. And if I contaminate it too much in the beginning, I'm going to cause myself some problems. Contaminate means I muddy it up.
Laurel wants to know, is the solid gel kind of like Marge medium giving a body to the paint?
Yes, but it's pretty, I mean, it's not thick. It looks thick, but it's very loose. In other words, you can work with it. It's very similar. I just found it. If you notice, I use it, right? Okay, let me explain something. You notice what it's called? I've said it over and over. Solvent-free gel. It's non-toxic. That's the solvent-free. So that's why I started using it. I'm all right. I do wear gloves sometimes, but 9 out of 10 times I always forget. So I err on the other side and I try not to use pure CADs, and I try not to I use Gamsol, which is considered one of the least toxic terp substitutes that you can use.
More eco-friendly.
Now we're going to go in and we're going to mess a little bit, but clean that brush and set it aside for a second. So now I have 2 brushes dirty, and I'm going to go down to this number. What do I got here? About a number 6. And it was that actually was a flat at one time, but I've used it. So if you use flats a lot, they'll kind of become filberts because you round the corners on them.
And our dear Chuck Pyle said he puts a little in his salad dressing. It's delicious.
Yeah.
Silly man.
Let's see, that's what happens when illustrators talk.
They start squirting solvent-free gel on their salad.
But don't get me wrong, Chuck Pyle's a damn good painter too. So I actually darkened that color with a little raw sienna, a little red, because I can see right in this area it's quite a bit darker. But it is still in the same similar color and value range. And I'm lifting up on it as I go down so I get an automatic blend. So I didn't have to work on that blend. All right. Back to this color. Now we're going to go pretty much into this hairline. I don't like using that. It's a small brush to use. I hate to use. It's working okay. It's not working great. It's working okay. Okay is fine for right now. You want great at the end. It's really nice when every stage looks wonderful. Um, and I don't care what you're painting. Very seldom is that the case. It's the nature of the beast. Okay, I'm going to take it back to the base flesh color right now.
Ray has a question. At this point in your career, what do you find is most challenging about head and portrait painting?
Paint characteristics.
You need to
Getting
capture the likeness.
Likeness is just a matter of putting in the time. If you studied enough, but to give a beautiful paint quality, the quality of the paint itself, to me is the biggest challenge. But that's I say that whether it's a head or whether it's anything, to me that's as I've, for lack of a better word, matured, um, only chronologically.
I'm just gonna say, have you done that?
Yeah. That's why I say only chronologically. But as I've matured, I've become more intrigued with the quality of the paint. And I think that is because, to answer Ray's question, after working a whole bunch of years, you can grab accuracy at any particular time. So color is also something that I find for me is something I have to work at. Um, it doesn't. I don't want to say it. Yeah, I guess I do. It doesn't come easy, and I have to come up with the kind of what I call a color concept. In this case, my model is my color concept. I'm not doing anything outrageously out of the ordinary in terms of color right now. I'm pretty much staying true to the way the color is. Now, a little darker, and so I've augmented the. I use this word augmented a lot, and I don't know why I came up. It's used in many instances, but basically, it's changing a color, taking your base color, which was this kind of flesh tone, and just moving it a little bit one way or the other. Uh, I know that who is it? Uh, Terrific painter Scott Christian uses the word bending. It's the same concept, literally. I just happened to seems like 100 years ago came up with this idea of augmenting the color, which is changing slightly. I know people do that in music when they'll augment a note. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, if any of you guys are musicians, I think that is a type of note, like something augmented, like D sharp augmented, that type of thing. I don't know. Uh, that's my limited guitar training. Okay, so you can see I'm worried. I'm getting these edges out. Also, I'm changing the color a little bit. I like what I did up there. I think I need it here. And I think I need it here. And maybe a little bit, I grabbed a little bit more warm. Probably a little too strong there. But you can start to get a little bit of dimension here. Little bit. It's pattern first, form second. So I dealt with the pattern, the light and shadow pattern. Tried to maintain um, a specific edge quality to the paint. And once I have that down, I can really start to really work on the form itself. The key at working on the form is not developing it too quickly. That is probably people want to go right towards that thing. They see these wonderful lights. They get the nose in and say, "Oh, look at the light on it!" Boom. But there's structure under that light. There's structure under everything. So the longer, he used a great quote, and this is something I heard that John Singer Sargent said. Someone who I studied with him said that at one point he said he could paint 8 days on a head without ever getting into the features. And that's, you know what that is? That's building form. That's really taking the time and the care to study and see all the underlying form changes that occur prior to finishing off features, prior to finishing off highlights. So just in this plane up in here, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 value changes. And they're so subtle. They're so very subtle. So you sneak up on them, or I sneak up on it. Let's put it that way. I find that's the easiest way to deal with things. And I've mentioned this week after week. My whole concept in teaching, particularly, and demonstrating, is to show the easiest way. There are many ways of going about. You could just start with a swath of tone and build a whole face out of it. Now, the thing of it is, that's going to take a little longer. You know, it's fun. It's great exercise, by the way, and it's a lot of fun, but it's going to take longer. So, for the sake of demonstration purposes, it really is not conducive. And the lips, she's got great lips to paint, really structural. And whenever I use someone's got great lips to paint, literally what I'm referring to is their bone structure. And lips don't have a lot of bone in it, but they're the structure. There's a lot of really beautiful structure. It's not just an upper lip and a lower lip. There's a lot more going on there. I'm going to bring a little bit more warmth. Well, I don't like that brush. I'm going to switch over a little bit to my sables, or my rosemary sables, just because I need to. So before it goes into the deeper shadow, there's a little bit, not enough, a little bit of a light there. That's better. Really subtle. This has got a much subtler edge. I threw some red, because usually around cheekbones you can get a lot more warmth. I don't see it, so I'm inventing it because I know that cheekbones generally have a lot more warmth. I'm going to grab one of my rosemary, these beautiful mongoose, synthetic mongoose, by the way, sables, which I love. They are ideal for softness. So I'm going to begin paint into paint. I'm painting on top of wet paint now.
Is that why you picked up that brush?
Yes, it is.
That's my question.
Way too dark, right? So all of you are going, whoa, did he screw up? What you do is you just keep pushing it back into the paint until you get the tone that you want. Much nicer, still a little harsher than I want, but I want to take the neck and clarify that shape. It's working pretty good. It's got to get a little warmer on the cheekbone itself. So again, I'm working right out of what I call that pot of warm flesh tone that I mix up. And I'm just, as I said in the past, I'm augmenting that color a little bit. In this case, warming it. Stepping back every now and then. Where else do I see that? Well, I see it here. Now, I've got two options. I can, at this particular time, soften everything, or I can chunk everything in there and soften it later. The wonderful landscape painter Edgar Payne painted these in a beautiful, chunky style. And I think a lot of people look at that and have tried to emulate it, which it was his natural way of working. And I think that's something that we all have to think about. What is your natural? Think about that. What is your natural way of working? That's a quiz. Now, all of you that are there next week, I expect you to come back and explain. And when I figure out mine, I'll explain it to you, because I work a lot of different ways. It's a good thing and it's a bad thing. I do that because I've taught for so darn long, and because I've had to deal with so many different students that have different goals. It opens you up as an artist. It really does, and I've learned a lot. But at the same time, uh, you find yourself working a lot of different ways to try and help people, and I like that. And I've turned that into kind of a hobby for me, where I like to just kind of what I call mess around. Now that the nostril at the very end will really take some care with. So you can start to see it's starting to shape up. I got some value changes in here, not enough in here. I can see a real nice plane change right here.
Laurel wants to know if you do life drawing too.
Yeah, yes I do. Who wants to know that?
Laurel Miller?
Yeah. I haven't taught it for a long time. We got so darn many, some of you know, some of you don't know. I am the director of fine art at the Academy of Art, and I've been there for about 30 years, along with dealing with my own career as a painter, pretty much. And I did some illustrations. I haven't for years, but so I've kind of had this kind of triangular career, and it's been wonderful, and it also keeps you to a degree from developing who you are, even though I work at that a lot. And one of the great things is that it opens your mind up, and it teaches you different ways of solving problems. So the upper lip goes like that. It isn't just bump. It goes down. It's got a curvature. That's why as it goes down, it gets dark. As it comes upward, it catches more light. All right. And that's why you get a little bit of light in there. And you can always go back and work on the shape, because I had this color. Remember I saved it? And so the same in here. You've always got that color to go back to. That's one of the reasons that I was showing you. It's really helpful sometimes to mix those things up in the beginning. And when I'm doing really, say, a commission type portrait, that's what I do. Head painting, if I'm just doing a head painting from model, I don't do it. But this is kind of in between. This is more of what I guess you would say a refined head painting, because it's 90 minutes. And most time when I do head paintings, they're anything from, I don't know, 30 to an hour. But if I have the opportunity, I love to spend a little bit more time working from the model. It's just it's a real treat. And those of you that have done it know exactly what I'm referring
Mm-hmm. Figurative workshops.
Yep. For years, God, how many years? For years, I used to do a figurative workshop. I haven't done one for quite some time because our venue that I used to do it at, this is not funny, it burned down in the fire that we have here in Santa Rosa. So I haven't really done any figurative workshops. The only ones is if I think I've done Patrice in Sacramento. I've done one for her, but usually they want more of the quick study, not the super refined. Okay, let's keep going here. I gotta kind of clean some of this up. I'll look at my time. Okay, I'm about halfway through, and I should have a little bit more laid in. So we're gonna get a little bit more. I see some more structure here. I gotta stand back. I'm painting way too close. I'll tell you guys right now. I can feel it. Okay, now this real softness right in here, a little bit more redness right there. A little bit of a pull in here. Back of the wing is not quite as red. It's up in here. We're going to bring that, we're going to fire up that cheekbone a little bit more. And then it's got a cooler component to it, right? I got to keep the value correct. I think I'm too light. No, I guess I'm not. Okay, let's get those lips in. Yeah, some people wonder, I usually, for me, I finish the eyes at the end, the very last thing I do. And I don't know if it's because I read one time that one of everyone's portrait heroes, John Singer Sargent, said he built the structure, and at the last minute he plopped in, it's his terms, by the way, he plopped in the eyes like a couple of fried eggs. And so I have found, I will give you my own, which you get from anybody. Anytime you study with anybody, you get their own opinion about things. For me, the minute I get the eyes to finish, the painting feels done. And it stops me from developing more of the structure that I need, the underlying structure. Therefore, what I do is I lay off on the eyes as long as I can. I'm refining those eyes. So I've put in what I call placeholders where those eyes are. I can see as the nose goes down, it stays warm, but it goes a little dark right there. That's that structure of the nose. It's a little more structure in the ear. Okay. Now let's get the base color of that lower lip. It's kind of a tricky color. It's almost a flesh tone, but with a little bit more warmth in it and just slightly darker. So I mixed up a little bit more red. And this is I think it's not as pure. I just glanced at it, so I threw a little blue into it. And we're going to start with it right here. Oh, too dark. You can tell right now. Let's try it again. Probably not dark enough. So I'm resting my hand on my own arm. It's what I always call a poor man's ball stick is your own arm.
You actually have one over there.
Yeah, I know. Little darker version of that color right here. So again, plain changes. Is that about right? Looks kind of close. Let's get that. I kind of muffed that eye up earlier, so let's get it in there a little bit better. Okay. I shouldn't be worried about that right now, but see, I'm trying to do a pretty refined head here for you guys, as opposed to a very painterly head. Just because I've done so many painterly pieces, I thought I'd try and do something a little bit more refined for a change. It just makes it, the time frame is not conducive to do super refined pieces. It works very well for more painty type pieces. And in landscapes, there are areas that you can slough off, so to speak. In a portrait, or a head, unless you're doing a real painterly piece, I don't know that there's that many areas you can really slough off on. No, it's shaping up. I haven't stood back enough. I'm going to get a little bit of the philtrum in there. And it's cooler, right? See if I can get it the right temperature. Right here. Holy smoke, I think I got it the right temperature. And as it comes down, it's a little warmer. and the bottom of the chin before it is quite warm here, darker. So we're starting to pull some structure out of it. At least I'm beginning to see that structure is beginning to emerge. Structure meaning form. This looks really wrong. It's too big of a flat area. It's really a little darker up here before it gets down and gets some light into it. That feels better. I can see right at this point, there's a delineation between the cheek and the ear. And this is where it's darker. So I'm taking that same kind of dark and I'm mixing it back in. Whoa, I got really messed that up. Put my finger down. And we're just softening it back in. And I'm going to do the same here. I wipe the brush and I'm just going to push that paint around a little bit, soften it back in. Okay. Let's start to get a little bit of a highlight up in the forehead. The forehead's got a lot. It looks like a big flat area, but there's a lot of structure going on in there. A lot of varied structure. So I went back to the raw sienna, mixed it into this color. I'm trying to get, there we go. I'm trying to get the warmth that I see. That feels better. Still doesn't feel dark enough. And I kind of stepped back for a second, and that's where I was able to tell that. Up close, I thought it was right. But as soon as I stepped back just a little bit, I could see that I could afford it. It can be particularly up here. It goes darker still. So I've taken some of that shadow color and mixed into it. I'll take a little bit more. I'm just kind of dragging the paint over the paint, letting it do. That's tending to work. I want to get a little darker here. Then we're going to start to pull the light out. It's pretty yellow in here and a little bit yellow up in there. So I can go back to my base flesh tone. And I'm going to bring a little maples and a little ochre. Little maples, little ochre. And let's see what it looks like. That's subtle enough. And the same as it comes over. Little maples, little yellow. As it comes over this way.
Earl wants to know what you think about painting live models online, like people are doing during the pandemic now.
I don't find it any different than painting from a photograph. You're painting off of a flat screen. That's it. Other than that, other than the fact that you get a model, that part's great. But literally, you're doing the same thing. If you're painting off of a screen, you're painting off of another flat. It's not dimensional. So, to me, I think it's fun. It's a new challenge, but I don't find it any different than painting from a photograph. And it depends upon if you get good lighting, and you're stuck with the view you get. So you got 10 people painting the same view, which is, as I said, if you don't have a model, man, it's dynamite. Or you don't have photos of models that you shot. I'm fortunate; I've shot photos of models, so I do have. I don't have a huge array, but I do have something to fall back on. But if you haven't, then that's a different story. I understand it. I think it's a great way to get a model, and it's truthfully the best part about it. It's a great way to keep models employed. I like that. That's probably to me the most important thing, if you can do that. But it's not, like I said, I keep saying that it's not a lot different than painting from a piece of reference. I want to get into a little bit more on the forehead. I see another piece of structure, which is on the temple, which is right here. And all that is that my base flesh tone with a little Naples into it. But boy, I can start to see form starting to emerge. And the temptation is, boy, If it's this good, all I got to do is throw that highlight in there and it'll be great. And which is true when it's time, not before. You do it too early and you miss too much of the underlying substructure. So there's a little piece of light right there. Now, you notice I did that and then I laid off it. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to revisit this and I see more light right there. I needed to put some more Naples into that color. It wasn't, I kept blending, it's blending into it quite a bit. So boy, it's starting to illuminate, which is good, I also see that same color. It's basically emerging up here and a little bit here, down on that cheek. So if you start, hopefully what you're starting to see is form beginning, if not ending. Um, let's go ahead and hit the top of the muzzle. This is what distinguishes it. So that sometimes people see the laugh line. It's not so much a line. It becomes a crease with age generally, but it's not so much a line as it is a plane change. A sharper plane change appears more linear. A soft plane change does not. So,
A couple of questions. Hi, Lindy wants to know, Lindy would like to know if you could talk more about sneaking up on highlights, and then I'll get to Nora's question.
I'll talk about it. Sure, that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
What you see me doing is sneaking up on highlights. That is too harsh. Till I stood back, I couldn't tell. So what am I going to do with it? You know, it's like you do it, you go, oh, damn, I screwed up. So let's just take another brush, clean brush, and just wipe some paint over it. Soften it. If things look too harsh too quickly, get rid of it. Get rid of it. Simplify. Go back. I can't paint. Painting is not strictly what you would call a forward process, meaning it's not always keep heading one direction. Sometimes you need to go back because you've made a mistake.
That you're able to sneak up on the highlights because of the structure.
You sneak up on the highlights and you sneak up on your darks. You sneak up on your eye. You notice where the eyebrows are? You notice the eyes? There's a lot more dark in around there. Haven't thrown it in yet. So you do it on the two extremes. The one extreme being your lights, the other extreme being your darks. I always tell people, put your darks in, but don't put them in as dark as they appear. Wait. As you progress into your painting more, if you need to darken it, go ahead and darken it. But don't start too dark. Okay, play a little bit more on the lip. As you revisit areas, you will begin to notice more because you've already established the basis of that area, but now you look deeper into it. Like I can see down in this part of the lip, it's quite a bit darker because it's turning downward. So what's happening is we're wrapping that lip. Now, at that area there, I just glanced at it and it is not right. So I've got my shadow color, which is right here. I'll go down and we'll try it one more time, see if I can be a little more accurate this time. That feels a little bit better. Also, upper lip. I'm going to try and get a little bit lighter right there. I may be too light. I don't know.
Ray was saying that one of his favorite pieces of advice on painting the mouth from you was it's not a line. If you paint it like a line, it's going to look like a line. Yep. If you paint it like a plane, it's going to look like a plane. And that's what I just exactly right. That's exactly what I was referring to about creases. They're plane changes. They're rapid plane changes, but they're plane changes. So, gonna lay off. Chin is starting to develop pretty well.
Still not there, but it's starting to develop pretty well. Again, I'm not going to get it as far as I would if I were doing a finished portrait. I guarantee you that. That's simply time. You know, how long would I spend if this were a finished portrait? I would probably go back onto it for 3 or 4 days and soften. Soften, lose things, find things, lose things, find things. So this is a big head study, and at the end, I'm going to just indicate enough of the body in there to make it feel complete. Now I'm going to take some alizarin, which is my darkest red, and I'm going to put it carefully back into the nostril. And you really can't see it in the shadow side. Oh yes, you can. I can see a little bit of the wing of the nostril, a little bit of the wing, right? This may be too light.
So Laurel was just asking, do you put any form indication in the shadow side?
Not in. This is really strongly lit. In something that is not strongly lit, absolutely. But because this is so strongly lit, any form you see in the shadow is really minimal. For example, I'll show you where I see some right now. Good question. Great question. Right here. And that's the cheekbone as it moves up to the temple in the shadow side. But you have to know how to look for it. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of that background color, add some more blue or green, doesn't really matter. I just want to do maybe the dark, shadowy color. And I'm going to try some. I see a little bit of coolness right in here. There's form in the shadow side. I want to sneak up on I want to get a little bit to the forehead now so I can sneak up on the eyes, get the band in, get down in here, and then go back and retouch. And then, we got to put those earrings in. They're too cool not to put in. Reshape the ear. Better ear. Same with the top. Doesn't stick out that much. Okay. This is like a number, these tables are numbered differently. So just so you guys know, what is this? It's a rosemary number. That a 6 or an 8? It's a 6. It's really nice. That's with the Naples yellow. So I'm going to take white, medium, and I'm going to cool it a little bit. And then, because sometimes your final highlights tend to be a little cooler. So we're going to try this. This is big jump. It's probably too fast of a jump, but you're seeing me soften edges. I got to get back. And that looks about right, except I got it in the wrong spot. Either that or the hair's wrong. Yeah, let's call the hair wrong.
Yeah, that too.
Okay. But that looks like it's coming out about right. I was pretty lucky with that shot. It doesn't come this far over. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. That's a line I use on myself while I'm painting all the time. What the hell were you thinking? I always do this, better than that. And you go, uh-oh, better than that. You shouldn't have done that like that. That got too strong right there. So I went back to this with more Naples in it. And a lot of times, something that I will do is just go back and smear. Just go back and if I don't like the way something's looking, let's see, I've got a fan brush. I never used to use these, but I was really fortunate. I was at a convention and Rosemary Simi, who's just a wonderful lady, I went, wow, this is kind of neat. Particularly, I don't paint with it too often. Some guys do. But I blend with it. I'll just take it and smear. It's a great tool. If things aren't working, what I found is that I just smear it sometimes, then go back and redo it. So I'm using that light color right there. And I just see a little bit more light on this plane, you generally do, and right around that cheek. And on the top of the muzzle, you'll almost always see a little bit more light right about there. But that fades more. I have it, so I'm blending it down. On the chin, almost that light, right about. That's too light, too fast. Starting to work. I can go lighter here, and I will. That's more towards the finish. Also, I can see from the highlight, it isn't as bright, but I get a little bit of structure right about in there. Okay. Now the chin, I went too bright on, so I go back to my base color. Chip it away. Let's go into the lip. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. I'm trying to keep an eye on the time.
Earl wanted to know if you think in terms of warm light side, cool shadow side.
More or less. More or less. It depends upon the kind of light you have. If you have natural light, meaning you're painting from a window where you're getting north light, and that's your light source, then generally your light side will be slightly cooler and your shadow side will be slightly warmer. So a lot of it has to do with the lighting. In fact, I shouldn't even say a lot of it. It all has to do with the lighting.
That's Chuck Todd is asking a question too about just that
it's not warm. That's warm. That's not. In other words, it's moving away from warm, right? A model with dark skin, like a beautiful, beautiful African American skin, just rich. You're going to get all these wonderful warmths underneath. And the final lights will almost always be slightly cool. It's a joy to paint. It really is. One of my good buddies, Bob Frazier, are just great. They've got just, besides being cool people, really, really cool people, they've got the richest, beautiful skin tone. The people that are really can be a real pain is someone with real light, pasty skin. Man, that can get really difficult.
Is it so?
And you're going to have more cool colors in it too. This lady's got a really just this beautiful kind of copper skin tone, and it's rich. It's rich with color. It's one of the reasons I picked this one to do is because I thought for a demonstration the color was just really, really striking. Okay, I'm watching the time here, so I know I'm running a little. I want to leave myself about 5 minutes to go in and knock something out in here. So let's go a little. Let's get this band now. Do that at the very end. That takes just a second. Get a little bit more hair in. Okay. Let me stand back. What the hell that spot is? Drives me crazy. Every time I stand back, I see the spot staring at me. So you guys have those of you guys that have watched a few of these have watched me do some landscapes. And I'm much bolder and more aggressive. And if you notice, probably it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this for a change, is I'm being much more cautious. And that's generally, you have anatomy to deal with. First of all, you got anatomy, you got proportion, and if you're trying to likeness, you got likeness. So you got all these things you're dealing with. So it's going to stand to reason that you're going to be a little bit more careful, for lack of a better word. So I'm going to paint the shadow side of this band. I'm going to go darker with it. I don't think it's dark enough. That's probably a little too dark. As it comes up, gets a little lighter. Then it gets a little lighter still. I'm going to add some medium because I can feel the paint is feeling sticky, and I am painting on wet paint, not light enough. And so that means the paint that I apply on top cannot be too dry. It's got to be wet enough. Okay, now we're going to take it to more of a pure white with just a little naples to warm it up. And I'm mixing it right back into the color I was just using. It is pretty sticky. So we'll start here. Yeah, close. Not quite though. So I'm going to fix it. Goes more that way.
Careful.
Careful. Did I bump the camera?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to clean it up. And leave it alone. Let's go into the eyes because I want to get them. No, let's get that lip first. Lip first, eye second. We'll get the body. The neck isn't right. We'll finish with earrings. So I have a plan. Hopefully I'll get it right. I don't like that nose. I can see where I'm off. I'm going to be off in a lot of areas. I know when I'm done, but I thought, let's try to decide what I'm going to do next week. I think I might do something kind of more design oriented, even though it's a landscape that is really doesn't have a lot of light and shadow, but has design and a lot of paint character, a lot of thick paint maybe. So always looking for different things. Just I don't want to bore you guys. And like I said, I don't want to repeat myself. Although I know I've done 2 Venice paintings. Hopefully they've been different enough. Square that jaw out a little bit. I didn't like the shape. I'm still looking at this. It doesn't feel quite right, but I like that edge I just put in there. I don't like that. That's the advantage of having that color mixed up that I mixed right in the beginning. It's just a wonderful time saver. You're not searching for it. Okay, so let's go in and start to lighten up the lip, lighten up the head. Before I lighten the lip, I think I could go a little bit, a little too strong, a little darker right there. Just smear that back into the paint. And now we'll take the same color that I was using for the lights in the forehead, and we'll go, that was too strong. It's that right there. I don't like that part of it.
Ray suggested movie poster.
A movie poster? Nah. They don't do movie posters anymore.
Right.
Then I got to pick up all my mixed medium crap. Okay, now let's get that highlight on the head and then move around. I have to do mixed medium. I've been teaching a wildlife class this semester, which has been a hell of a lot of fun for me.
Yes.
And a lot of what they ask for in there is demos in different mediums. So I did a watercolor demo, and talk about stretching myself. I haven't done a watercolor in a long time. And I did an acrylic demo, which I'm pretty darn comfortable with because I've done acrylics for so many years. And this next week, they want me to do watercolor, gouache, and pastel demo using all 3 of the media, which I have done. So I feel pretty good about that. And then I've got this one guy that's going almost abstract. And to get him to go even more gutsy, I'm just going to do one. And it's not my forte to be an abstract artist, but I enjoy. It's still realism. Let me put it that way. It's not pure abstraction. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. But I keep trying to think of things. I thought maybe I'll pick like a landscape that is not beautifully lit and do something kind of powerful and gutsy, uh, more shape and design oriented, but still real. I can't get away from the fact that I am a realist. And no matter how loose and free I go, I still have that part of who I am that I don't know that I can ever shake. A little bit of a lid. Gonna watch it. I got about 10. You got about 10 minutes. Is that about right?
It's 1:22, so
Okay, we'll do the best we can. Hopefully, it's starting to come to life. So I'm taking. It's a little cooler. The eyes, the whites of the eyes are not white. They're almost this color, the color that I have there. And I like to paint them in a little too dark in the beginning, truthfully. Um, the eyelid, a little bit of light on that eyelid. Gotta be real careful. A little piece of light right there on that eyelid. I don't like. I could really work that nostril out a lot more. Shape. Now I see a little bit of brown in her eye, so I'm going back to the raw sienna along with my shadow color, and I'm going to go back into this eye. It's a little too light. And a little on the other side, but I only see it in the shadow. I only see it right here. Okay, didn't need for it to be that dark. See, the advantage of wet paint. You paint right back into it. Okay. Now I haven't pushed the darks. So we're going to do that right now. I took the color of the hair. Now I'm going to be much more careful and accurate. There. There. Eyelashes. There. Definitely on this eye, because this eye is really in deep shadow. So it's there, up and over, and I can see it coming all the way down into that area. Don't like that right there. Now, same, I'm going to go with the combination of the shadow and the black. I think I'll go right a little more black. The black, but when I say black, I mean the color that I mixed up, the blue and the asphalt. It's going to go up here, come down, and then on this side, it's going to come down. And it's really soft. It's not very strong. It's probably more, and I want to paint into the paint. I don't want to paint. So I want this to have a real soft character right there. Now we're going to go put a little light in those eyes. We'll come in here. And on the other side. And then I'm going to take my little liner that I use all the time. Use it for the bright light in the eye. Normally I would be bringing these eyes up for another probably a couple hours. I just try to be a little bit more accurate. I'm going to get a little bit of the body in. The right side of the body is very dark in deep shadow. And so I can just take this and I'm going to be sure to shape around it. I want to bring one of the things I just noticed, I could really let that hair dissolve into the shadow. I just glanced up there and noticed that. So what happened? That's called revisiting and realizing there's something you can do to make it better. Okay, so we're gonna come down here. Let's see, where does that line up? Right there. Okay, let's now this color I didn't mix up. I'm gonna take raw sienna, sap green, with whatever color I already have in the brush. That's pretty close. I'll be damned. Well, that's right or wrong, that's what I'm gonna do. Same thing I did before. Simple light, simple shadow. Then I'll build a little bit of additional form into it, providing I have the time, which I'm close to done.
Nora had a question earlier about cleaning the palette.
Uh-huh.
There's any trick other than
Scraper.
Yeah.
Right here. If you can do it while it's wet, it's easy because you just and it's off. But if it dries, you have to scrape a little harder. I've had them dry. I found a palette that I had in the garage probably for a couple of years. The paint had dried on. And if you ever find that out, use alcohol, rubbing alcohol, or denatured alcohol, one or the other. And you can actually go back and it loosens up the oil and you can clean it pretty good. I've done that with brushes, by the way, too. So I'm just going to smear this in here and then I'll reestablish the darks in. But yeah, that's probably the best way to go about doing that. Okay, just throw more ochre into that same color. More ochre still. more ochre. I'm just using ochre right into that same color. But every time I'm putting it down, every time you see me putting it down, what's happening is I'm picking up some of that dirty color. And so for me to keep getting a stronger color, I need to kind of reestablishing that. It's probably a little too yellow, but beggars can't be choosers right now. I just want to get enough of this in here so it's relatively believable as a complete statement. I can take that same brush, clean it off, go back to my darks. What happens is as you develop a little further, you start to see where you're off, and then you just go back and fix that. Goes back to what I said. Just plow ahead like you know what you're doing and just assume you're wrong. And what that assuming you're wrong gives you kind of permission to be a little bolder and know that you can go back and bring that under control. That's why I go back to that concept that I've talked about a few times: energy versus control. Um, the control is what you bring back, is your drawing or your value or whatever. But if you can bring that back, if you've painted enough, you will, and I guarantee you, this will happen to all of you. You will develop the confidence where you can go back. You will be able to go back and correct and fix things. That's all I'm going to lay in on the outfit. I'm just going to look at her face a little bit up in here. I'm going to soften a couple things, and we'll call it quits in about 2 or 3 minutes. I see a lot of little things I could just fuss around with forever, right? And a lot of it's just around the eyes. Because like I said, I wouldn't normally have laid the eyes in that soon. I did that simply because of time. And, it's like, that's why I refer to this as from the outset, kind of as a large head study, which is truthfully what it is. But, if I'm going to paint from a model or I'm going to paint a portrait and someone will sit for me for at least an hour, which is damn hard to do anymore. It's hard to get anybody that will put that amount of time in. Then what I can do is I can do a small little 8x10 color study from that person. And even if I don't get proportions everything right, I can double check colorations. I'm going to try and do an earring down about. I'm using my little finger on her neck here. Hope she doesn't mind. Okay. It's a little liner, and it's got a lot. I actually used some turpin to it. Now it's going to come right to here. So we want to find where the thing's going to come, and it's going to come right here. Picking up a lot of paint. If it didn't, it's not great, but it's okay. I'm going to live with it. The point that I was going to just make, if it doesn't come out good, you just wipe it out and do it again. A little shadow here, up here, and then the shadow goes up on her neck. You see it? Shadow right here, and then it goes back to kind of your base shadow color, a little bit, maybe not as dark as the shadow, but it's going to come right there on her neck. And then we'll get some of the light of it in there, and we'll pretty much call it done. So what I'm going to do is, oh, it's a little warm. I can almost pick up a little bit of, gotta go darker. Gotta pick it up from here, right in the ear. Come down. It's right about there. Straight there. And let's put the gleam on it. Do it one, it'd be nice to do it in a couple stages, but so we just about got it. It's about all I'm probably going to be able to get done in this thing in this amount of time. Last thing is with that little lamp. I keep saying last thing, don't I? Open the light there. And I said I was going to hit that light on her forehead one more time. Let's see if I can do it. And then that's it. And I will wish you happy lunch. Because that's what I'm going to go do. A little bit lighter. This may be too much. I don't know. I guess it's okay. It diffuses up a little bit more up in here. That's better. All right, gang. I don't know why I sound like Don Rickles. Okay, I'm getting the hair out of my eyes so I can see. I promise you one of these days you're not going to know me because I'm going to have a haircut. Thanks for tuning in. It was kind of fun. A little bit of a challenge. Haven't done a head like this for a while, so I learned. I've refreshed myself. Let's put it that way. I don't know. I learn a lot when I do these. One of the nice things that you probably don't realize is, as an artist that's demonstrating, I have to literally talk about what I'm doing in a valid way to make sense out of it. And it helps me understand even more what I'm doing because I have to verbalize it. A lot of times, when you paint it for a long time, a lot of stuff becomes intuitive. And the intuitive side's wonderful, but I like to blend intuitive and logic, or energy and control, if you want to go back to that way. This is a little bit more refined, and it's ahead, and I'll take a look at it and see what I think about it. Happy painting, and see you next Friday. We'll do something fun. Okay? Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.